with some breaking news. Russian authorities are accusing Ukraine of attempting to attack the Kremlin overnight with a pair of drones. Russian officials labeled the alleged attempt as a, quote, terrorist act, saying the Russian military and security forces disabled the drones before they could strike. The Kremlin added President Vladimir Putin is safe in continuing to work with his schedule unchanged. We should note there is no verified evidence the attack provided to us or anyone else by Russian officials. According to Reuters, a senior Ukrainian presidential official says Kyiv has nothing to do with the purported incident. Let's bring in NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel. Richard, good morning. What more do we know about this?
So we don't know very much about the video. The origin of this video, the source, is still somewhat mysterious. According to the Kremlin, this incident took place last night. It is now 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Moscow. So this video has been circulating for several hours on Russian social media. But just in the last few hours, just the last few minutes, really, the Kremlin is starting to take this very seriously, putting out more videos, putting out statements, and as you said, calling this as an assassination attempt, effectively, against Russian President Vladimir Putin. I have a statement here from the presidential press service in Moscow, and it says, last night, the Kyiv regime attempted to strike the Kremlin residence of the president of the Russian Federation with unmanned aerial vehicles. 2 unmanned aerial vehicles were aimed at the Kremlin as a result of timely actions taken by the military and special services with the use of radar warfare systems. The devices were disabled. It goes on to say, we regard these actions as a planned terrorist action and an attempt on the president. And then it concludes by saying the Russian side reserves the right to take retaliatory measures where and when it sees fit. And that is perhaps the most troubling part of this statement. Will Russia use this incident, this alleged attack by Kyiv, which Kyiv denies, to take some sort of attack of its own, perhaps even another attack on a presidential site or on Zelensky himself? Zelensky is not in Kyiv right now. He's in Finland. And as you said, Kyiv not only denied this alleged attack, it said it had nothing to do with it, and went further by saying that it would be counterproductive, that attacking the Kremlin achieves nothing, and that it could provoke a radical response from Russia. So this video is out there. The Russians are making a big deal of it. They're putting out these statements. Kyiv is denying it, and we will see where it goes from here.
And we should underline something you just said, and we've been saying since this news broke, all of this information is coming from the Russian government, from Russian state media. So take that for what it's worth. We know their penchant for propaganda. Richard, if just 2 points on this, how difficult, let's just say for a moment that it were Ukraine attempting to do this, how difficult would that be to get 2 drones that deep into Russia all the way to the Kremlin? And potentially how unwise it might be given the warnings from Russia, but also from allies, from the United States warning Ukraine not to attack within the boundaries of Russia.
It would be impossible to fly a drone of this size all the way from Ukraine to the Kremlin. If you look at the video, again, unverified video, and in these days of AI and other, when you can create video, you have to be very cautious. What appears to be a drone in that video is quite small, more of a hobbyist-style drone that is flying toward the dome of the Kremlin, and then it explodes for some reason. Apparently, according to sources on Russian social media, it was taken by people in the area, but it is not common. I've spent time around the Kremlin for people in the area to have their cameras trained right on the dome of the Kremlin at the exact same moment when some suspicious object is flying toward it. It is also not easy to fly drones in the area. The entire region around the Kremlin is geo-blocked. I've been there before. If you try and use Google Maps, if you try and order an Uber, it doesn't work. If you walk a few blocks away, your phone will work. But I remember last time I was near the Kremlin, I tried to pull up a map, and it showed me somewhere in the middle of the Black Sea. So there is a strong electronic presence there and systems to prevent this exact kind of thing. Now, drones, geolocation services can be disabled, but you would need to be fairly skilled at doing that. But you couldn't fly a small drone like that all the way from Kyiv or anywhere in Ukraine.
Yeah, and Richard, Joe here. This does. I mean, none of this adds up, especially if you look at it from the Ukrainian side. Can you talk about how the Ukrainians have known from the start that so much of their success depends on support from the West, support from Europe, support from the United States? And those allies have made it very clear that they will fight to defend Ukraine, but they draw the line at Ukraine escalating this into something that could lead to a third world war. Could you explain how, again, as the Ukrainians said today, would be counterproductive, but also how it would just be foolish because they would risk cutting off the supplies of war material that are helping them exist right now?
It would be beyond foolish. It would be counterproductive. It could be very dangerous for Kyiv, and it would infuriate the White House. It would infuriate allies of Kyiv, allies who have been spending a tremendous amount of political capital and real capital to help the Ukrainians fight this war and keep the Russians from taking over the country. The United States has made it very clear that it would not support an attack like this, an attack that would, frankly, have no chance of success. A small drone like that fired against the roof of the Kremlin, how that is possibly an assassination attempt, unless Vladimir Putin happened to be standing on the roof at the time with a drone, a tiny drone. There is really no way that this would ever have any chance of success. So if Kyiv were to have done this, an attack that would be provocative, that would alienate allies, and that would have no chance of success, it seems that they would have no benefit of even carrying it out. That's if it was carried out by Kyiv. Now, if it is real, and we don't know the authenticity of this video, if it is authentic, it could have been done by Russians. It could have been done by the Russians themselves. It could have been done by Kyiv supporters in Russia. Very not hard to know until we know more, and until we know more about the authenticity of the video.
Some appropriate skepticism this morning. NBC's Richard Engel will be back to you as more information comes to us here. Thank you, Richard. Jonathan Lemire, anything from the White House yet on this?
Not yet. They're formulating a response. We expect to see, we won't see the president until later in the day. It's unclear whether he'll weigh in or not. It's certainly right. Russia has a history of false flag operations, including some in this very war. That could be what this is. It could be an excuse to try to escalate. But we should note the Ukrainians have struck within Russia's borders before. We've known ammunition dumps blown up and military headquarters have exploded. And then whether Kyiv, the government, is taking credit or not is very different than perhaps some pro-Ukrainian forces going rogue and acting on their own. It's too clear to know if that's what this is. There is, as Richard said, footage out there circulating of a small explosion at the Kremlin. But certainly the fear here is whether it is real, this is whether the Ukrainians did this, or a false flag. Does Putin either way use it as an excuse to escalate the conflict? And we just
Boy, it would be hard to escalate the conflict right now, given the fact that they have gone out of their way to destroy most of the country of Ukraine.
And you got to say, Willie, first of all, Richard, great reporting there. It would be impossible, first of all. It would be impossible for them to launch this drone attack from Ukraine. That's the first thing. Secondly, it would be impossible for somebody to be flying drones around the Kremlin, as he said, just because of all the signals that are scrambled, all the blocking, and also all the protection there. And third, we're left to believe that somebody was just sitting there in the middle of the night going, I think I'm going to just get my camera out and take video of the Kremlin. And it's fixed there when this little drone, again, a local drone, hits the top of the Kremlin. It just, again, it makes, the more we get into it, the more details we get, the more reporting we get, the more unlikely it is that Ukraine had anything to do with this.